Well, let's get into the news review now. We're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante of the University of Ghana. Doc, a very good morning to you. I think you'd have to unmute, Doc.
Yeah, good morning, Ben.
A pleasure having you always. Thank you for joining us this Wednesday morning. Let's start with the very first bit on the daily graphics front page. I know that will be of major concern to you. And it says, go back to lecture theatres, court orders UTAG. So your members, yesterday you were in court together with your legal counsel. And you say you've heard the court order, but until you get a certified copy of the order and consult your lawyer, you aren't going to comply just yet. How does that strike you, Doc? Is that, as someone will say, is that your final answer?
Ben, you know, when the court speaks, nobody can defy that. So I believe that, you know, and I'm speaking as an individual, I'm not speaking for UTAG. I believe that the leadership, what they are looking for, once they get it, they'll be able to do the needful. That's it. Yeah.
So according to the story, students of public universities can heave a temporary sigh of relief because the nearly 5-week strike by the University Teachers Association of Ghana has been put on hold by the Accra High Court. The Labour Division of the Accra High Court yesterday put an injunction on the strike after it had upheld an interlocutory application by the National Labour Commission. But it appears, like I have said, that UTAG is not going to go back to the lecture room immediately. It's not going to be immediate. And what would that mean moving forward? That is the big question. So from where you sit, Dr. Asah-Asante, does that mean you are ready to go back to the classroom? I mean, you say the decision of the court must be respected and all of that. For you as an individual, are you ready now to go back to the classroom? Or are you going to do whatever your membership directs that you do?
Oh, as I've said, I mean, who can defy court orders? So I'm always a law-abiding person. So, but we have leadership, and then they are also saying that they are following a certain process and all that. But the stark reality is that when the court speaks, the court has spoken. So we'll do the needful.
So just to get some clarity, does that imply that if your leadership, UTAG, says, well, we've heard the court, like has been intimated, it has been said that, yes, you have heard the court, but until they get a certified copy of the order, the court order, and until they consult with their lawyer, they aren't going to comply just yet. So if UTAG insists that these processes must be completed before they return to the classroom, would you still want to return to the classroom ahead of their decision?
What I'm saying is that, you know, let the leadership go through the process and then they will communicate to us. I mean, once they communicate with us, I'm sure they will do the needful. That's it.
Right. Now, EU votes 203 million euros for 3 programs. Check out details of that on page 16. And Vice President opens 3,000 free online courses. That story is on page 16 of the daily graphic newspaper. And it says an integrated online learning, that is e-learning program to deliver 3,000 courses for the youth and professionals in the country at no cost has been launched in Accra. The courses cover artisanal entrepreneurship and technical and vocational education and training. The government has partnered the Leiden Educational Foundation, a social enterprise and brainchild of the program, to deliver the courses free of charge to the youth and professionals. So it appears we're going the way of everything, internet, this, technology, that. This bit about e-learning, free courses to be delivered, especially in the areas of technical and vocational education and training. Your quick thought on that. How much of an impact do you think this would be making?
It's a great idea for e-learning e-processes are good because they expand the frontiers of education. You don't necessarily have to congregate at a place to have, say, lectures and all that. By sitting behind a PC, wherever you find yourself, you can get hooked onto a system. So for me, I am for e-processes all the time. Sometimes our difficulty is that we don't have the necessary infrastructure. But now the good news is that those who are putting these programs on board are trying to make sure that the necessary infrastructure that would drive the program to fruition are on hand. So for me, it's a good thing. And for technical education, it's extremely good because there are a lot of things that we need to be able to do by ourselves as a people. And it is only through technical education that we are going to get this. So once we get technical and add it to vocational, technical and add it to grammar education, I'm happy that we will breathe a sigh of relief in terms of our development in this country. Yeah.
I don't know what your take is on bleaching, skin bleaching, but it's becoming a major worry. And Central Regional Minister Mrs. Justina Marigold Assan has expressed worry over the rising incidence of bleaching among pupils in some basic schools in the Central Region, describing it as a dangerous canker that needs to be addressed urgently. Now, she said despite concerns about that adolescent pregnancy, the interventions put in place were also helping in a decline. So a mixed range of issues, teenage pregnancy, but also in their skin bleaching. I don't know how much this rubs off you, but what do you think? Why do you think it is becoming so common among our populace, or has become so common, and now it's devolving into the basic level, at the basic educational level, where now pupils are even, bleaching much more than you'd expect? Doc, any take on that?
I'm not surprised we are seeing such a sorry story. We are hearing that. It is very worrying. And it did not start today. Bleaching has been with us over years. Bad practice though, but it continues to go on. I don't know the rationale. Why do people want to bleach? Once you have your skin natural as you and I have, that's it.
Is it not because we've glorified light skin? Is it not because we've all glorified it? I mean, even in our adverts, and not just in Ghana, across the world, we've glorified lighter skin. We've seemed to have this thing. We've adopted this mentality that the lighter, the better. And so women do all kinds of things. Some will take pills and all that. Is it not because we as a society have glorified it?
We can make it general. Some people may have that type of view, but if you go into the specifics, I'm sure there are more reasons why people bleach aside what you have said. But come back to it, the health hazard that they pose to people. For me, that is the more worrying situation that we have. And this story, when I was a reporter, the year 2000, I think thereabouts, we had stories like that where people were even using cement to bleach. And that was so worrying. I mean, health authorities were talking about it and all that. I think people must put a stop to this because all those who have practiced bleaching for that matter, we have seen the negative effect on them as they grow older, and you see their faces are disfigured and all that. They themselves find it difficult to live in society and all that. They become, subject of attack, and then people call them by all names and all that. It's not healthy. We will advise our society that, look, stay with what God has given you, make it better, and then you are good to go. Black is powerful. Black is beautiful. Let's continue to be proud of our color and then maintain it. And you see, we should not deceive ourselves into believing that once you put some medicine on your skin, it's going to change forever. The scientists will tell you that there is something in there that brings about the color of your skin. And that one, once you don't get it uprooted, you can, temper with what is on the surface, but at the end of the day, it will continue to give you what God has given you. Let us not deceive ourselves into believing that getting lighter skin is the best. What God has given you is the best. Your duty is to maintain it, and you are good to go.
Let's look at some other topical stories in different papers. The Finder newspaper now. Abronya faces court today over false news offensive conduct. That's on page 6. Before we get into his issue, we've had some precedents. We've had issues to do with some radio presenters or media personalities who have been apprehended in recent times, Bobi Ansah of Accra FM, among others. We've had the Mensa Thompson issue. And recently, more recently, we've had the Oliver Barker-Vermaule situation as well. I'm sure you're familiar with what exactly he put on social media and why he was carted off to custody for interrogation and more. And now he's being charged with treason felony. Then we have Abronya DC, the Bono regional chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Kwame Bafo, his name. And he has also waded into something tricky. And now he's been slapped with 2 counts of publication of false news and offensive conduct conducive to a breach of peace. What did he say? He said that the former president, John Dramani Mahama, is plotting a coup in very simple terms, and that he's collaborating with terrorist groups and all of that. That has landed him in some hot waters as well. Why do you think all these things are rearing their ugly heads now? All these, comments amiss and all of that, and the actions from the end of the police. How does that wash with you? Yeah.
I'm not speaking specifically to the various issues you are talking about. I'm speaking generally with regard to democracy, because if you look at how far we have come, we have struggled to get here as a democracy. And this is the system that the good people of this country said that it is better and far better than any imposed or military regime, if you like. So if there are difficulties that one faces in a democracy, there are processes, there are procedures, and there are rules and regulations that we call in political science institutions. So you use the institutions to get what you want within a democracy. Democracy, let us remember that it hinges on, rule of law. And rule of law has 2 components: equality before the law and due process. That when you take equality, we are saying that all of us are equal before the law. And due process means that any decision you take within the state must reflect the laws of the land. And that is one thing that we need to be able to prepare and then guide ourselves to maintain that. Because, in a democracy, if you have differences, you use the institutions to address. Let us remember that in a democracy, you can't do anything outside what the law permits. So I think that education must continue to be given to people so that we will be able to address our issues through proper institutions. All the cases we have cited, the good news is that they are in court, and the court is the final place where determination will be made. So I will not go there. But as a student of politics, my appeal to the society is that if we have, as individuals, I'm speaking generally, we have things that we want to address, let's use the democratic processes. And the democratic processes require us to go through a certain institutions, like the rules, the regulations, the process. Once we cross these things, we are likely to have problems in this. And whether it's about enforcement or whether it's about even procedures, norms, and all that, they are all regulated by law. So we need, as a society, to be very careful when we conduct our affairs and make sure that we defend this democracy forever. Ben, if you have read the political history of this country and you have gone through the trajectory, properly speaking, the literature and all that, you will always want to make sure that you want to defend democracy and then support it. Even though sometimes you come across problems, you use the democratic processes to address them so that we save and continue to maintain this democracy to endure, so that the fruit of it, all of us will benefit from.
Staying on the tangent of democracy and our checkered political history, as well as the former president, John Dramani Mahama, in a recent interaction, he has been mentioning that what happened on the floor of Parliament in terms of the tussle the fighting when it comes to the e-levy was a fight for democracy. Do you agree with him?
If you look at what happens in Parliament, is always a democratic process, but sometimes you get aberration. Aberration in the sense that when people are fighting, that's not democracy. Democracy is dialogue, it's consensus building, and it's what is about what Jojo, and it's a contest of ideas. So when you go beyond this remit, I'm afraid you are not in a democracy, you are in something else. But what happens in Parliament, if it properly goes through the processes of debates and then consensus, dialogue, and all that, that we can say that they are tenets of democracy. But anything short of the norms and the processes and institutions, so to speak, of democratic process, that becomes what? An aberration, a misnomer. And that doesn't gel well for a fledgling democracy such as what we have. I always want to appeal to people that let us use the dialogue as a means to firm our democracy. Democracy requires us to be sober and reflect on issues, and then we should be able to have very big stomach for dissenting views. It is one thing that we need to be able to work on that if we want to really support the system forever and ever. I'm sure all of us want to support the system, but we need to inculcate some of these things and then make it part and parcel of us, so that arguing from a certain standpoint, right, you are not seen as an enemy, and then you also taking a certain position and prepared to listen to you, and then we judge, or at the end of the day, we will come to a certain compromise. And that is a path to democratic endurance.
Lamashegu shooting. Joint Security Council calls on Lamashegu chief. Of course, they've called on him to de-escalate tension in the area. A 16-year-old GHS student was killed owing to the rampant shooting of police officers. And this wouldn't be the first time. I'm sure you followed that story with some people injured as well. What is your take on it? How it's been addressed so far?
I get worried by the day when I hear about, shooting, violence, and all that. It's a worrying situation. But the good news is that our security are always on top, and they are maintaining semblance of, the role that Constitution has been given to them to perform. They've done well to stem the tide of some of these things. But we as a society too must also learn and then follow institutions. There are differences that we have in our society all the time. And when we do get to such crossroads, all that we need to resort to is what institution. If in a democracy, as soon as institution breaks down, you are out. And let us always make sure that we use the institutional processes, the procedures, the norms, and what have you. Once we get these things internalized within our system, you realize that it reduces the pressures, the problems that we have in our society. And then our government also must prepare to also assist in the, poverty reduction, which it has been government program all the time. All governments we've had. Let us continue to strengthen that. Let us continue to also look at the problems of society and deal with them head on. Governments have tried their best, irrespective of the fact that sometimes there are resource constraints, but government has done its best. We also must work to make sure that we support efforts and by the state, and then we make our society a better place for us. I am happy that opinion leaders also have played a very important role in such areas. I mean, where we have had differences and all that, you have seen the role of our chiefs and opinion leaders, very fantastic. I will continue to urge them to, in spite of whatever differences, continue to hold the balance for us, so that we'll build a very solid society for ourselves.
Let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Bring all international contracts to Parliament for ratification. That's according to the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament. And he has directed the Minister of Finance to bring all agreements the state has entered into under Article 181 of the 1992 Constitution to the House for ratification. The directive of Mr. Bagbin follows revelations by the Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Eslo Usu-Ekufo, that the government had acquired Airtel Tigo from its parent holding company, Bharti Airtel International, an Indian firm. She reiterated yesterday that they had acquired it or secured it for $1. And the Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Sam George, also posing quite a number of questions on the back of that. But moving from the Ghanaian Times newspaper, there's one concern I'd love to run by you before we wrap the conversation. It has to do with fuel prices. And people are calling on our government on the back of the high fuel prices across the world, at least regulated by different governments, to use part of the gains they have secured on the international market to cushion the Ghanaian customer. And COPEC has been talking about a further 30 pesos, or 30% actually, being added on the price of fuel, 30 pesos. So 30 pesos already this year, we've had about 40 pesos added, which would give a total of 70 pesos. And there's been a lot of talk about this. What do we do? How do we stop this escalating situation of fuel prices going up day by day? What is your quick thinking on that? You purchase fuel, so do I.
It's a difficult thing, and this has been with us for a very long time. I am sure we need to sit as a society, both people and government, and find common grounds that will help all of us. Because we as individuals who purchase fuel, we are in some difficulty. Government also face a lot of difficulties in this area, how to be able to get these things out for people to purchase and all that. There's always a certain conundrum. But the experts, I'm sure it's about time they sat with the society, leaders or groups who lead various groups of people, so that they look at common grounds as to how we can get out of this problem so that it doesn't become a recurring issue all the time. I think that is what we have to do in order to address this, so that we will move this economy very fast, very, very fast.
Well, Republic Press, Apiata explosion. Male victims complain of sexual weakness. That's according to a psychologist. And you would recall that in the aftermath of that entire enterprise, there were some who had complained about hearing problems and all of that. In this instance, some are also complaining of sexual weakness. The story is on page 7 of the paper. The publisher, Ghanaian publisher, Canada MP, in quote, granted 100K bail with surety and focus on task ahead, Tampoli tells GCAA board. There's also Minister Bax Baumia says too risky for NPP to deny him. That story is on page 3. And the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Mr. Kweku Amprachum Sapong, has said it would be risky for the governing NPP to deny Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia the flag bearer position for the 2024 presidential election. Doc, too early for people to start making statements? I've spoken to some who have resisted the temptation of commenting on this matter, but here we are, a Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs is wading into it, and he says it would be dangerous for the NPP to sidestep Dr. Bawumia. Your quick take.
I get worried about some of these happenings in MPP. Why am I saying that? Because the party leadership has come out to spell out the processes for followers of the party to abide by, and that it is not, the time is not ripe yet for such conversation to be made, and that they must always wait for appropriate time. Now you are seeing all manner of jostling, all manner of statements coming to that effect. Sometimes even some coming from some of their leadership and all that. It undermines the very institution they are setting for themselves. Because institutions are meant to regulate the conduct of people so that you get a very solid system that will be able to push that agenda of capturing power and maintaining it for as long as you can hold on to. So some of these things have the tendency of undermining what they are fighting for. And then it also divides the party along certain lines that create all manner of problems for the party. If they go on this tangent, I'm afraid you are likely to have a situation where you end up creating blocks within the party, because each person will also come and speak for one person or another. And at the end of the day, they become ammunitions for opposition to use them during campaign to campaign against them. I think that, in my humble view, they want to build a solid democracy. They must reflect on these things and then guard against them. Otherwise, they are likely to weaken the very institution they want to build to help them to achieve power. And that will not bode well for them. It's an advice I'm giving to them. They can reflect on it and then make do with it, or advise themselves differently.
Doc, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us this morning, and I wish you the best of the day as you go about your activities, and the best of the working week coming next week as well when it comes to UTAG. I do have a good day.
I'm grateful.
Right. And that is how we wrap the news review this morning. A very happy birthday to George Wiafe of our business team, and Fred Smith as well, assistant editor here at Joy News. Well, up next, we have sports coming your way. Do stay.